Alrighty. So finally, we are really basically done with all of our simulations, all of our geometry, everything. So now let's set up the actual rendering thing. Um, so yeah, again, we're not going to be looking at that. So these red nodes here will become what's actually rendered. So starting with the ground plane, ground render. Actually, you might as well have the right material also. So we'll say it has the outside material. Okay, what else do we need? We're going to need a geometry node for the particles. So we'll say particles main render, and that's going to pull from there. And I'm going to say, actually, this would be a good time to go back to our double thing. Oh, let's go back to cool style. There we go. So again, we've got particles main render. So what we end up doing a lot is we differentiate between the sim stuff and the final stuff. Mostly because when you're in the sim stuff a lot, like here, maybe you left the visibility flag on this thing by accident and then you didn't leave it on this. But by pointing explicitly at the out null in here, we won't have to worry about that. So what I mean is I'll put the object merge down in here, and then I'll just say that. So whenever this thing is being rendered, it's always going to be rendering the right thing. It's always going to be rendering the output, the actual output of those cache nodes and all that stuff. Similarly, we can play around with the materials that go onto this, or we could, modify things further just for rendering, and so on and so forth. It's just an organizational thing. So particles main render, and we'll say particles trail render. It also will help us when we're searching later. We can search for all nodes with an RNDR thing. It's not strictly speaking necessary, but it's like using, nulls and stuff for organization in general. It's not necessary, but you should do it because that's why they have them. So what I'm doing is I'm building up all these render things, and ultimately they're going to all be here in this one mantra node. Now, honestly, in most production environments, we would render each of these elements separately and composite them together later. But in order for this to not turn into a lesson on compositing and rendering and lighting and all that stuff, we're just going to render them all at once. So forgive me that this is really more about the simulation and general rendering of these things and not about the studio pipeline of how you would render these all out with deep passes and everything else. So this is all going to work out just fine. So anyway, particles main, particles trail. We need the RBDs main render. So we'll go into there. We'll go into RBDs main sim. Throw that in there. So now we got 4 of our elements going now all at the same time. What else? We got to do the render for the ground. So ground scar render. Same thing. Ground scar sim. There it is. So now we've got those things showing up. It's all coming together now. Smoke main sim is the next one. Actually, I was going to just copy and paste this one. Smoke main render. Fly over here. Smoke main sim. Now we got a bit of smoky stuff going on in there that dissipates pretty fast. Now what else do we need? We actually need another one that we don't even have yet, which is the laser itself. Let's paste it like that. So laser main render. Laser main geometry. Grab him, put him in here.